Welcome to the channel. This is Chris from Off-Road Nation 606. So today we're going to install the Iron Rock 3-link setup for the XJ. This is their 3-link rock link, I think is what they call it. So my Jeep currently has the short arm setup and it's got the drop brackets, which helped a lot, but I want to go ahead and just 3-link it. Now I just got finished Hemi swapping my XJ. I put a 5.7 Hemi in it, and I needed to do this 3-link kit to make more room for the exhaust, because when you install this kit you're going to be removing the old control arm mounts on the Cherokee from the frame side. You're going to be removing those, and that's going to leave me more room to mount my exhaust. So I just got this kit in and I went ahead and unboxed it, and first thing I'm going to say, I was very impressed of how good the kit was boxed, how good they had everything wrapped up. So one of the reasons I chose Iron Rock Off-Road is because on their kit they got a removable center piece. That way if you need to lower your transmission or do anything like that, this whole center piece comes out and your control arms stay in place. I know it seemed like a lot of other kits, if you wanted to remove the center section you'd have to remove the control arms and everything. I didn't really like that setup. So this is what all the kit comes with. It comes with some instructions in the box, and they give you a bunch of stickers. But right here is your hardware, and then you got your links. And I was pretty impressed with this setup. I definitely don't think I'll be bending that. And then you got your brackets that mounts on the unibody. And those are pretty thick, so it looks like that should hold up pretty well. And I like that they went ahead and welded a nut on the other side, because once that's up in the unibody it'd probably be hard to get to. I really like their design. Another thing too, it seemed like on most of the kits the control arms are completely straight, and these are bent to help for tire clearance when you turn your wheels. So that's another thing I like about this. So I'm going to go ahead and get the hardware out, and I'm going to pull the Jeep in, and we'll start with the cross member first. Now when you unbox everything, you'll get a checklist. Shows every part that's in the box. You just want to go through that and make sure you got everything. Then they give you all kinds of instructions. They also show you like what you need to adjust your control arms to with your different lift heights. Then they also show you how to put your heim joints together. So I was looking through all the hardware, it looks like I got everything. It also comes with these little spacers. That's for your transfer case drop. And they also got some longer bolts if you want to do that option. So these are your heim joints for your control arms. And this one here is for your upper control arm. And this is your hardware for the arms. So for the lower arms, you're going to need a 5/32 Allen socket and a 3/8 wrench. And then you're going to need a inch-pound torque wrench. I keep that in mind, that's not foot-pounds, that's inch-pounds. And then you're going to need some multi-purpose grease and a grease gun. Now the upper arm is the same, except for the Allen head, you're going to need a 9/64. Okay, so I'm going to do the upper control arm first. So here is all the hardware you're going to need. Now on the upper arm, the flex joint is a little bit different. You don't have no nuts to tighten up. It actually threads in on your washer. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take some multi-purpose grease and put it all around that end. Okay, now we're going to take these pieces and I'm going to go ahead and install one. So I'm also going to put some grease around your race. I'm going to put that on the inside of that lip. When these are together, you got two different ends. You're going to install the side that's got the groove in it. They're going to be sitting together like that. Now we're going to take our washer and I'm going to go ahead and put one of the screws. I'm going to go ahead and push that in there. And now we can take our flex end and I'm going to put some grease around that. And then we go ahead and drop that down. And now we're going to take our other race and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put some grease on it. The easiest thing to do is go ahead and stick 2 bolts up there. That way you can get this race to line up. And just push that down. Then after you get it lined up, you're going to take your other washer and you're going to set that on top there. And then you go ahead and screw that down. On the upper, you're going to have 4 facing down and then 4 facing up. Now I'm going to go ahead and snug these 2 bolts down. That way I know everything's in place. Right there is what it should look like when it's done. You'll have 4 facing that way. Then when you turn it over, you have 4 facing the other way. Now we can install our grease fitting. You just need a 3/8 wrench. Now it comes with 2 different grease fittings. One's a 90 and one just a straight. So I guess you can just choose whichever one will work best for you. I'll probably put the 90 on there. Now for the upper control arm, it says to torque these bolts to 50 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. Then go back and torque them to 55 inch-pounds. And now we can take our grease gun and go ahead and grease that joint and you'll be good to go. So if you had a hard time seeing what I was doing, the paperwork does have a picture of how it needs to go together. And after you grease it, it says retorque bolts to 55 inch-pounds. So now we're going to do our lower arms. So this is pretty much the same way. So first thing we're going to do is take some grease, put it around there. And now we're going to take our race and I'm going to put some grease around that. Remember, it's the same way. Make sure them grooves, make sure they'll be going together. And we'll install that straight in. Okay, with that like that, we're going to take our washer and I'm going to go ahead and take a bolt. I'm going to line that up. Now we're going to take our flex in. I'm going to put some grease around that. Go ahead and drop it in. Now we're going to take our other race. I'm going to go ahead and put some grease around it too. And then we'll slide it down. You want to make sure that these holes line up. That way you can put your bolts in. It might be easier to go ahead and put 2 bolts sticking up. That way you can get that lined up. You may have to gently tap it a little bit. Okay, so after you get it in place, now you're going to take your washer and just slide that over. Now I'm going to go ahead and put 2 nuts on. Just that way it don't go anywhere. And I flip it over. So these bolts don't thread in like the upper. These actually have nuts on the back side to tighten up. Now after you get all the bolts, that's what it should look like. I always tighten them in a crisscross pattern. You need to torque these bolts to 70 inch-pounds. And then after you grease it, go back and tighten it up to 85 inch-pounds. Now we'll install our grease fitting. It's also a 3/8. Okay, so after that's done, of course it's the same on the other one, so I'm not going to show it since it's the same process. Now this other bag that comes with it, 181, that's just your hardware to tighten these joints up. After you get them in the Jeep and figure out where you need them, that's all that's for. It just goes on these ends. So now coming up under our Jeep, we're going to do the cross member. So you'll need to remove it. Now be sure whenever you take your cross member down that you support your transmission and transfer case, because you definitely don't want that falling down. So mine's just a little bit different because I have a different transmission, but you'll have a couple bolts here in the middle. You need to remove that for your transmission mount, and then you'll have 2 bolts on each side to remove your cross member. Now if you've never done any kind of work to your cross member, you'll have 1 bolt and then you'll have a stud sticking down with a nut. You'll have to remove that stud for this kit. You can use a stud remover, or you can double nut it and tighten it, and you should be able to loosen it off there. But just be sure that you support your transmission before you take it down. So I'm going to install the passenger side bracket first, since there's more room, and I'll be able to show you a lot better. So right there is where the 2 bolts were that was holding the factory cross member. Hopefully you can see that good. So I got frame stiffeners, and for this bracket there's a 3rd hole I have to cut out, and I'm going to have to cut that little section. As you can see, there actually is another stud up in there, and I need to cut that out. That way I'll be able to bolt that. Right here's how your bracket, there's how your bracket's going to sit. So that's what I was talking about I have to cut out the 3rd hole and then drill and tap it. That's just there for some extra support. So we're going to go ahead and tap that. So the instructions say to use a 23rd 64th drill bit, and then use a 7/16 of 14 hand tap. So after you drill that out, then you're going to take your hand tap. You want to put some PV blaster or something on there, and you want to make sure you get the tap in there straight as you can. Just slowly tighten it up, and you'll have to back it off a little bit just to help with those threads. And then you can take your bolt they give you and thread it in there and make sure everything seems to be okay, and that thread's in there pretty good. So the brackets, they're a 15 millimeter, and then the bolt you just tapped, that will be a 16 millimeter. So right there is how it's going to sit. That part's going to be open, that way your control arm will be able to bolt on there. So we're going to install these other 2 bolts, tighten it down, and then the passenger side bracket will be done. Okay, so I got all them tightened down, so now the passenger side bracket's on. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the driver side. It'll be the same as the passenger. Okay, so the driver side is now on. So now we can go ahead and install our cross member. So on our cross member piece, whenever you install it, the Iron Rock logo will be facing the front of the vehicle, and this side here is where you install it to your transmission mount. Now my mount's a little bit different because where I'm running a different transmission, I had to make my own mount. So this kit comes with transfer case drop spacers, and those will install on top there. They also give you some longer bolts if you're going to install the spacer. Now these bolts will install from the back side up, and be sure that square locks in place. Now for these bolts, you can tighten them up with a 15 millimeter wrench. So the end of your cross member, that piece is going to install underneath here. So right there is the way it'll go. You'll have your cross member, your spacer, and then your nut on top. It'll be the same way for the passenger side. And while you're doing that, you can go ahead and install your bolts for your transmission mount. Alright, so the cross member is installed and tightened down. And I've got it bolted down to the transmission. Now the instructions say to torque the 7/16 bolts to 65 foot-pounds, then torque the M10 bolts to 50 foot-pounds. So now we're going to install the driver's side first. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put jack stands under the vehicle. So I put them back here, that way the jack stand won't be in the way whenever I put the arms on. And I'm going to have to cut these old brackets off. So I'm going to go ahead and jack the driver's side up, and then I'm going to pull this wheel off. That way there's room to get in here, and I'll start taking these arms off. So the bolt size will probably be a little bit different on yours. I am running the drop brackets, so I'm using some different bolts. Just be sure that you got your axle supported too before you take them completely off there. You don't want nothing falling on you. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, and I'm probably going to unbolt the shock and just move it up out of the way, make more room to work with. Should be able to take a mallet and gently tap these out. May have to raise or lower the axle a little bit just to get it to come out. But they should drop right out. Now we need to remove these brackets. So yours will probably be a little bit different since I am running the drop brackets. I'm gonna go ahead and remove those, and then I'll show you how to take the old bracket off from the original location. So now I'm gonna cut off these brackets, and as you can see, I already drilled out some of the spot welds. There is a couple holding it on. So you can either use a sawzall or a grinder, but I think I'm going to use the plasma cutter on this. And I'm going to cut down below this, because that way I don't cut into the unibody. Now on the back side, on the driver's side, one thing you do need to watch out for is the fuel lines run on this side. So you might not want to get the plasma cutter too close on the back side. One thing I did do, I put a rag over that and I soaked it. Hopefully that'll help keeping anything from happening. Now that bracket right up in there, I'll probably leave it or cut just a little bit of it, because that's going to be hard to get to. I definitely don't want to get that too hot near the fuel lines, so keep that in mind on the driver's side. Now the passenger side, they really ain't nothing in the way, so you should be okay there. So this side here is cut, and I think on the other side I'm just going to use a sawzall, because I don't want to get too much heat near them fuel lines. Okay, after you get everything that you can cut off, if you look at the bottom of this, you can see a couple spot welds. I'm going to drill all of them out, and then that plate should fall off there. Looks like I probably have to cut a little bit on the edges. They are a little bit of spots welded, but I'm going to drill all them out of there to make it look clean. After you get the backside cut pretty good and get all the welds that you see cut out, you should be able to go ahead and just pry this off there. Now it's probably going to take a little while, because there's still going to be some spots that still might be stuck on there. And okay, so that took a lot longer than I expected, but that piece is now off. Now the passenger side shouldn't take near as long, because I'll be able to get in there with the plasma cutter. So I'm going to clean all this up, sand it down, and paint it. And there's a couple holes in there from the spot welds, I need to plug them back up. Now we're going to put our upper control arm on first. So the instructions say for a 5.5 inch lift, the upper control arm needs to be 37.25. And they also say whenever you measure these, to measure on the short end, and that would be center to center. Okay, so the upper is now 37.25, center to center. So after you do that, you want to go to bag 181, and you got a bolt to tighten this down with. So here's the bolt they give you to tighten the upper arm down with. Now I'm going to leave that loose for now. I'm just going to snug it up just in case I have to do any kind of adjustments. But just remember to go back and tighten those down. And for your lower arms, you got 2 bolts per side, and it looks like the nut will actually fit down in them grooves. So for the upper arm, you're going to use the smaller bolt they give you. Then you're going to use one of these, and you won't need a nut for it because it threads in. It's already got a nut welded to it. That takes a 15mm wrench and a 17mm wrench. And then you'll need a 7/8 to tighten it up on this side. So hopefully you can see this good. So the upper arm's going to go up in here on the very top. So I'm going to install it from this end first, and then we'll so you may have to push on it, pry on it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and thread that on there. Now I'm not going to put it super tight just yet until I get everything on here. Okay, and then on the front, you're going to install your bolt and washer, and then put your nut on the back side of it. Our lower arm needs to be installed at 36.5. Okay, now after you get these to the size of your vehicle, you're going to take these bolts, and then you're going to put a nut on there, 3/16 Allen wrench to tighten them down with. So just like the upper arm, you're going to do the lower arm the same way. So the instructions say for this to be completely straight, they said if it's at an angle at all, you're going to have to flip it around. So basically what they're meaning is this flex joint needs to sit in there completely straight with the mount. So on the lower arm, it's easier to install it on the axle side first. Just depends on what's easier for you. So now that we got this lined up, I'm gonna go ahead and bolt it down. So one thing to mention, if you do have problems getting these arms on there, you can take a ratchet strap and put it somewhere on your frame just to move your axle forward or backwards enough to get it lined up. So now that we got both arms bolted down, we can now torque them to spec, and we can put our wheel back on this side, and then we can start on the passenger side. Alright, so this side is now done. Now I'm going to move on to the passenger side. It'll be the same way, except there won't be no upper arm, it's just one lower.